this video we're going to compare the options dialog box between REVIT 2013 here on the right, which is codenamed One Box, which has the architecture, structure, and systems all built into it. So it's such a wonderful new way of dealing with REVIT with all of the disciplines together, and I can't explain how useful it is to have all the disciplines under one application. Totally changes that whole approach to BIM, and the fact that everyone across the disciplines using MEP or structure or architecture actually all have the exact same interface options and actual software. So really is going to change the game. And in this lesson I'm just going to compare the options dialog box with that of architecture 2012. So I've been doing architecture, structure, and MEP videos up until REVIT 2013, where they've combined them all together. So I just want to compare the options dialog box to get us started here. So I'm going to go to the big purple R, the applications, pull down in REVIT Architecture, Structure, or MEP 2012, it doesn't matter, and pick the Options dialog box. So there's that Options dialog box. That's the old one. Now I'm going to go here to REVIT 2013. Now there is REVIT Architecture 2013 and Structure 2013 and MEP, but of course I've combined them all of my applications into the one suite. So if we go into the REVIT Architecture 2013, combining all disciplines, and we go down to the Options dialog box, it looks like this. So there's the new Options dialog box, and there's the old one. You see, the first thing you'll notice is that the old one had the tabs: General, User Interface, Graphics, File Locations, Macros, View, Cube, Steering Wheel, spell checking, and rendering. And in 2013 they've simply moved the tabs to the side. So if you count them, there's I believe 9 tabs, and if you count these, there's 9 options on here. So as we go through, we're just going to kind of compare one to the other as we go through. Most of it, in fact, is exactly the same. It's just been kind of rearranged in true Autodesk fashion, but I'm starting to think that now that they're all together in one application, hopefully there'll be a little less moving around. So let's start with the General tab here in 2013. We can see notifications, your username when you're creating work sets, journal file cleanup information over here. Work sharing update frequency hasn't really changed. There is a nice new option in here called View Options, which when you create a new view, you can actually set the default view discipline inside of here. So that's really nice and refreshing. And we can see in here, notifications is the same as it used to be. Username information, journal file cleanup, timing, frequency for work sharing, and then all of a sudden we'll see that we did not have this wonderful default view discipline set up. So that's a new addition there. So let's go to our next tab, User Interface. This is the new user interface, and this is the old one. So the first thing you'll notice is that we have all these wonderful new options, and what this does is these tabs here can be turned on and off through this. So if all you're doing is architecture, you can turn off the structure and turn off the systems and turn off the ones you don't need, and then when you hit OK, you'll go out and those will be gone. Okay, so that's kind of nice. Back to my options inside of here, back to my user interface. Let's turn these guys back on. Okay, you'll notice the massing and site tab. That's one of the first things I noticed when I opened up REVIT Architecture 2013, as I recall, was where was the massing and site tab? By default, it's not turned on. We need to turn that on inside of there. Okay, energy analysis tools, we can turn that one on, and then we hit OK, and we'll notice that we have more tabs. And if I take this here and stretch it across a little bit, you'll see those tabs: architecture, structure, systems, annotate analyze is now being shown up. There's our site and massing tab over there, of course grayed out because we're not inside of a project. So these tabs are being controlled over here. Let me just squeeze this back down first before I do anything. These tabs at the top are controlled, or the availability is now in through the user interface. You'll also notice these are some sub-tabs that if we click on here, we can't turn this one on or off. If we click on here, we can access this one. This one shows up under the Analyze. You'll see Analyze here. If you turn Structural Analysis on, and Mechanical Analysis, once again, you can't turn this on if this is turned off. Oh, it looks like maybe you can. Maybe you can turn this off and turn that on. Let's see what happens. So we're going to turn some of these on. Let's take these guys off, and what I'm going to do is I'll have to Structure tab, Structural Analysis is turned on, Mechanical Analysis is turned on, but the Mechanical tab itself is not. So let's see what happens. We hit OK. We can't see the Mechanical tab, but under Analyze, if we go into here, you'll see these inside of here. We're seeing Analyze Model Tools, Analyze Boundaries. So this is a structural and structural. So actually the structural stuff is showing up under Analyze and grayed out because we're not in a file. But the fact is these guys in here are showing simply because if we go to our options and we go into here, this is turned on. Now I was checking to see if this is turned on, and that is only going to show up if this gets turned on. Systems, Mechanical Tools. Watch. We hit OK, and all of a sudden we're going to have our systems show up over here, and under Analyze we're going to see those Mechanical Analysis tools show up. So that's kind of nice and refreshing again. So back to our options. Dialog box. So that's our user interface. We can turn these tabs on and off. And the rest of this actually is the same. So if you look at Configure, Tab Display Behavior, Display Contextual Tab Tooltips, okay, they've moved the Tooltips guy from there up to the top over here. But for the most part, this stuff is all the same. Okay, let's go to our next tab, Graphics. If we go here to Graphics, I believe this is exactly the same. A little bit different looking as far as width and shape goes, same information. Okay, File Locations. There's some changes inside of here. The first thing you're going to notice is that there's no more default template file. That's one of the first things that I've always taught everyone is check your default template file, because when you hit this new button over here, it would automatically create a new project with this template file. In REVIT 2013, we'll notice that first of all we have these template files, and they're going to show up over here in our recent files. So you're forced to create a to pick a template file. In the new version of REVIT here, I'm going to hit cancel. If you hit new here, it would create a new project with this file. In 2013, if you hit new, all it does is force you to pick one of those template files over here. You can say none, but you still have to pick one. There's no more start new without even selecting. You are basically always forced to pick a template file, as opposed to this was a kind of a queue new, which made a new project and used this by default and didn't ask you. Now you're forced to make that decision. And these four guys here are these four guys here, and they're also the same as if you go up into here and go into options and go in file locations, that's those guys. So these are locations and template files. Okay, this is the name and this is the path, and if you pick on here you can go browse and you can add and you can reorder the order of them by using the up and down, and then plus and minus adds and removes them. So file locations, these are the new project template files and locations, which is completely different, which is basically replaced this field here. The rest of it's the same. Default path for user files, this is where your your local file goes when you create a local file from a central file during work sharing. So during work sharing, this is where your files are going. The next tab we have over is the rendering tab, and if we go to rendering, pretty much everything's the same. Okay, go to the next one, spell checking. Spell checking is simply called spelling. Notice how it's reordered the front and back here. So really, other than the fact that it's renamed spelling, spell checking, no different. Steering wheels over here, steering wheels over here. I don't see any changes in that. Okay, view cube settings, no changes. Macros, no big changes there. Okay, back to the general tab, which added this guy inside of here. So there's a couple of tips on the new REVIT one box options dialog box compared to the old REVIT 2012 and probably even 2011 options dialog box.